If you're a wedding photographer, flat lays are one of the first things you photograph on a wedding day. And honestly, they're one of the easiest ways that you can elevate your work. But if you've ever felt like yours are a little cluttered or they don't have the depth and dimension that you're looking for, you're not alone. Hi, I'm Effie, a Connecticut wedding photographer. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how to create beautiful and intentional flat lays for your couples. We're going to break this down into a super simple framework that you can follow every time you show up on a wedding day. We'll talk about choosing your largest element, styling invitation suites, and layering in small details and florals. As we go, I'm also going to talk about the 4 core principles that really bring everything together in a wedding flat lay: layering, depth, color, and balance. By the end of this video, you'll have a repeatable system that you can use on any wedding day, whether you have 5 minutes or a full hour to style. The one thing that a lot of photographers don't realize is that flat lays begin before the wedding day even arrives. It is really important to educate your couples on what they need to prepare ahead of time so that their flat lay looks beautiful. I advise my couples to put together a little box that includes multiple copies of their invitation suite, extra envelope liners, any heirloom items that they'd like photographed, their wedding rings, ring boxes, dishes, anything that's personal to them that they would like. Of course, I supplement flat lays with my own styling kit, which I highly advise for anyone who's looking to get more into designing detailed flat lays. Having your own kit means you're not just relying on what the couple is providing, because speaking from experience, couples oftentimes forget to include things, and it's important that you have your own kit to work off of. Let's start with the most important step, the base layer, which is your flat lay mat. You can order flat lay mats online, or you can even make your own by going to Michael's and buying materials like fabric and sewing it together. I love having double-sided flat lay mats because I have a lot of variation when I'm doing a flat lay, and I can just flip it over to go to a new color. Flat lay mats set the overall base for your composition. It's really important to choose a flat lay mat that complements the color of your invitation suite that you're styling. You're going to lay your flat lay mat down on the ground and pin down the edges just so that it doesn't roll up while you're photographing and styling. Once you have your shooting surface down, now comes the fun part. When styling wedding flat lays, the main invitation suite is really what shines. We want to make sure that this is the center of the attention when someone is looking at a flat lay. In order to do so, we need to create depth and layering so that it doesn't look very flat. My tip is to start with the largest items. You can always fill smaller items in later on, but it is really hard to fit in larger items when you don't have the room. By starting with the largest first, it gives you a great working area and allows you to balance things out later on. Most invitation suites have many different layers. You have the envelope with an envelope liner, you have the main invitation, RSVP card, and sometimes there's also a detail card or other elements included as well. As I mentioned before, the main invitation is really the star of the show. So all the other elements, I try to create layers underneath the main invitation suite. I start out with the main envelope and I lay that flat out. And then I use styling blocks. These are the key for depth and layering when it comes to your flat lays. You want to make sure that there is variation in depth, so there's not just one level plane of all of the paper goods on your flat lay. After we style the main invitation, we then go into the filler items. I'll place the RSVP card, and then I'll place the details card. One thing I'm always looking out for is balance. I want to make sure that the left versus the right, that one is not too heavy over the other. If I place something in the top left corner, I'll try to place something in the bottom right corner to balance it out. This just really creates visual cohesion and is really nice to look at when you're looking back. Also remember that layering is everything. You want to overlap items intentionally. You never want to flatten things out or separate them. What we want to do with filler items is we want to fill the dead space without overcrowding the flat lay. This is when ring boxes, ring dishes, perfumes come into play. Another tip on depth here. One of the tricks I like to do is put ring boxes on top of ring dishes or layer them on top of styling blocks so that we have that element of depth. Now is also a great time to begin thinking about florals. Before a wedding day, I also prepare my couples to make sure that florals will be there in time for when I'm doing my flat lays. When you're styling large items in your flat lay, it's important to also begin adding in big flowers. You want to take those and you are going to put them into those empty spaces around your flat lay. Once you finish with the filler items, we now move on to small trinkets and little heirloom items. This can include a grandmother's brooch, a little locket, things like that that can really fill in and add value to the flat lay. These will often be the emotional pieces for couples in their flat lay. Because of that, I love to try to get up-close detail photos of these items because they often will not get the chance to get them professionally photographed ever again. And finally, my favorite part, we move on to filler florals. We've already added large florals previously throughout the whole flat lay process. Filler florals are those smaller flowers that we're going to add to really balance out the entire flat lay before we're done. Another thing that I love to do when it comes to the last stage of florals is I take the petals off of the flowers that I have and I sprinkle them over the entire flat lay. This just helps them lay organically over the entire thing and they fall and just become very beautiful in the way that they look on the flat lay. One thing that I do is I work with my couples to identify who their florist is ahead of their wedding. I communicate with the florist personally and I find out if they'll have flowers at the wedding in time for me to do flat lays. If they will, I'll ask that they set aside a few individual stems for me to use within the couple's flat lay. If they won't be there in time for the flat lay, I will go out the night before the wedding and grab some floral stems for me to use in the flat lay. I love to go to Trader Joe's or any grocery stores nearby and I grab rose gardens, hydrangeas, or anything that fits the color scheme of my couple's wedding. Flat lays don't have to be overwhelming. Once you understand the structure, they can become one of the most creative and fun parts of a wedding day. I hope this was helpful. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for my next video.